Well, we have Dr. Leke Ebenezer, he's an economist. He joins us now to look at whether the interest rate at 13% will curb inflation rate, because the CBN said why they took that decision was to address that the new interest rate will be able to address or curb inflation rate. Whether that is not is why we're looking at now. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Leke. We appreciate your time on the program. Now, what's your position on this? According to CBN, they said the reason why they decided to review upward by 150 basis points is to curb inflation. How effective is this policy?
For me, thank you very much for having me on the show. For someone like me, the increase of the interest rates, without looking at all other monetary tools simultaneously, is not going to have a good positive effect, given the fact that, if there's too much money in the economy, which is excess supply of money, that can bring about inflation. And of course, when there's inflation, one of the ways to control that, a monetary tool you can use, is interest rate, because if you increase interest rate, that is going to reduce the amount of people that can borrow money, because once interest is high, borrowing becomes low because people want to borrow at lower interest. So, but then you have to look at what exactly is this increase in interest rates going to cost. And for me, it's my likely cost what to.
Hello, Dr. Leke. Well, I think we're still looking at the fact that the Dr. Leke was trying to let us know that that, of course, is not the main solution, and the CBN should be able to factor some other tools or some other factors to curb inflation. Yes, let's continue from where you stopped, Dr. Leke.
Okay, so as I was saying, other factors should be considered, because if you don't want to, you don't want stagflation to happen, a situation where there is inflation and high level of unemployment, because if you are increasing the interest rate, you have to look at the impact on the manufacturing sector. And of course, if that affects
Well, certainly, of course, the impact on manufacturing sector, I mean, it's a big deal. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Leke.
So it will force down the price of product, but then that is going to result to unemployment, and that is not a very good one for the country at this time, because anytime you are making a decision, you have to look at the consequences on all other variables. You will not just consider the fact that you want to fight inflation, and that is why you have to increase the interest rate. Because if you are fighting inflation and you increase interest rate, you have to look at the impact on the manufacturing sector. You have to look at the impact on unemployment. You have to look at the impact on the stock market. You have to look at the impact on consumption, which are all variables of the GDP. So for me, it is like I always say, interest rate is not the only tool that you can use to fight inflation. There are other variables that can be used. Of course, you have moral suasion, you have special direction.
Dr. Leke, let me quickly come in here. So the CBN, what you're saying is that the CBN shouldn't have raised interest rate, or that their target shouldn't have been, okay, to raise interest rate to curb inflation. I mean, let's look at all the parameters that you think should have been adopted to curb this inflation.
Okay, thank you very much. For me, like I said, there are various monetary policy tools that can be used to control, inflation. And so, yes, interest rate is one of them, and of course, is one major. But what I'm saying is that if you increase interest rates so that you can curb inflation, You have to look at the spiral effect on other factors. So for me, I believe that interest rates should not be used in isolation in fighting inflation. So other parameters should be addressed, like trying to look at, I know government has judiciously used open market operation to also combat inflation, but they should also look at other factors like special directives, moral suasion, try to look at, of course, I know that the cash reserve ratio is maintained at 27%, but then I believe that they should use all of these tools together at the same time, so that as you are trying to curb inflation, it's not going to result into another problem, which in economics you call spiral inflation, where you are trying to solve one problem and it's creating another problem. So for me, solving the problem of inflation and creating the problem of increase in unemployment, and also because the moment there is increase in interest rates, that will force borrowing to come down, and that will make manufacturers not to be able to put prices of product at higher price. But then what will happen? They will lay off people. What will happen to their assets? What will happen to all other value chain within that sector? And that's why I'm saying, for me, as much as it is good to use interest rate to curb inflation, all other variables should be simultaneously used together so that it will not generate another problem.
Mm. And some suggestions or recommendations that experts or some analyses in different quarters have also put on the table is the issue of the forest scarcity. I mean, that the government needs to address that particular segment of the market to ensure that institute reform in the forest to also encourage stability as well. Let's look at it from that perspective. I need you to speak to that as well. The forest crisis, it's not today, it's been coming for quite a while now. I mean, do you think that the CBN is missing out something in some of the approach or the method he used in controlling that particular segment of the market? Because some say it is because of instability and lack of uniformity in the exchange rate that has also contributed largely to the inflation we're seeing in the economy.
Yes, of course, that is extremely very correct. Like I always say, the challenge that we have been battling with in our macroeconomic policy has been the fact that there are a lot of political interests in that area. And because of those political interests, they are not allowing some, macroeconomic forces to play out by itself. One would expect that a flexible exchange rate should be allowed, where the forces of demand and supply determines the issue of the forex. But, at one point or the other, the government is always looking at the fact that that arena is a conduit pipe for illicit fund, and so it's important for them to regulate and control that. But then the side effect is what we are seeing, because if you don't allow the markets, the forex to the market to play out by the forces of demand and supply, these are some of the things it will cause. It will bring about inflation. And so that is also part of the problem. But the argument of the government has always been that they are trying to make the exchange rates or the forex market to be fixed regulation. Is because they want to curb the excesses in that area. But then it's causing inflation. And of course, if government truly want to be sincere, they should use other means to look for how to track illicit fund transfer and make sure that the regulation of the forex does not negatively affect the economy, which is what we are seeing now.
Well, I think we need to leave it there. Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Lekki Ebenezer is an economist. Thank you for your time on Business Breakfast. In case you're just joining us, this is Business Breakfast coming to you live from our studios here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. Still to come after the break, Brent crude futures rose 46 cents to $119.89 a barrel in early section. When we come back, we'll head straight to look at the activities in the commodities market. This is Business Breakfast.